Okay, welcome back to Seward Sound Words here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward and on our YouTube channel at Sacktown. We are back with a show here. I think a special show. This is Seward Sound Words, local writers performing, reading their work live on the air. We have here today, as luck would have it, Sam McDavid.
Sean Ullman. What, Sean? You need what's your middle name? You need Sean William Ullman. You need like a
maybe for the show.
You need like a sports middle name, like Hammer and Hank Aaron or Clyde the Glide. You need something like Jerry the King.
Right now. Let's come up with something.
Jerry the King Lawler. You need Sean Delano Ullman. You need something with pizzazz.
We're going to finalize that by the end of the show, and that'll be how we move in. It's almost like a new season right here. It's been a couple months since we've had a show, so thank you.
You played sports, right?
A little bit.
What were you into? What were you
Basketball,
playing? Basketball, okay. Right. All right. So we got to start like Pistol Sean Ullman.
Well, we don't want to use
yeah, right. Okay. A revolver Sean Ullman. We're
gonna get there.
Sean the revolver Ullman
in my head, and we'll come up with some ideas and we'll finalize it, and that we'll maybe try to go with that with the show. So Sam McDavid, folks, this is the man behind the byline, among other things. Did some excellent work here for the Seward Journal as a reporter covering town news. The reporter, and I do want
the only reporter.
Thank you for that.
Sure. I mean,
that was very helpful, and
we're doing what we can. You know what I mean?
Great work.
We're scraping the bottom of the barrel at the Seward Journal during my tenure, but we pulled it together.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
We miss you there, your voice there. We miss that. Having those bulletins and every week in the PO boxes. So nice work. Some of you might not know that Sam is also a very established, very veteran, I would say, creative writer.
I'm old. Is that what you're saying? I'm old?
Right.
I'm an old creative writer. That's exactly right.
As am I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you need a name now, as I think of veteran.
Yeah. Give me a like
still hanging around.
Babe.
Yeah.
McDavid
called in. No, this guy's got projects, all kinds of projects, variety of stuff. You're going to hear him do some voices today. He is good in the digital sound realm, sound collages. He's put together a clip that is just real sharp that we're going to play for the first time, playing a clip. Sam has created some cartoons that are in the works.
That we won't be seeing today, but
we're going to talk.
I'll act them out.
Yeah.
I'll act them out
you will see them.
Yes, I'll act out all the animations for you.
And, the novel I'm thinking of is Squawk, which we're going to get into.
Squawk, which nobody wants to publish. So if you're out there and you're a publisher, please write to Sean the Glide Ullman at SewardPublic.org.
Sean Shakes Ullman.
Well,
Sauce.
Okay. There you go. Sean Sauce. Well, shouldn't it rhyme with Sean?
No.
Like Sean Werner von Braun Ullman.
Rhyme is old. No. Something unexpected. All right. Please do, because we want to get this book out. It's strong. I do want to go back to how I met Sam, because it was before or maybe at the same time, but you did a story on Seward Soundboard, my novel.
Yes.
We might have met just before that with we were doing the writers group on Zoom, COVID time.
Yep.
And you were a consistent, as well as several other local writers. You were always there on Zoom. We'd have like 5 or 6 of us, and that was really fun, sharing work. And that's where I got to hear Squawk, hear you perform, hear about it, and talk writing and the.
Let's talk a little bit about Seward Soundboard. Nobody cares about my little
you wrote a nice piece on it, stuff. So yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about Seward Soundboard, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna break the fourth wall. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't read Seward Soundboard, the sentences that Sean has created in Seward Soundboard are the syntactic equivalent of shaker furniture. Okay, everything is perfectly. Now I don't know if he's as celibate as the Shakers, but I would think not, because he's got a couple of kids. But the craftsmanship that goes into every single sentence, when you read it, if you're a writer, you're like, dude, save some sentences for the rest of us. You've taken all the best sentences.
Thank you.
If you want to know where all the best sentences went, read Seward Soundboard.
plenty of sentences to go around, as you're going to hear. I appreciate that. Syntactic.
Equivalent of shaker furniture.
So it's a short book, and I'd worked hard, and it was a huge book. And when you take a huge thing and chisel it down to, they're going to be pretty, chiseled.
So, and did you labor over every syllable? I mean, it feels like a lot of love went into every single line.
Yeah, trying to get the rhythm, just reading over and over. It doesn't quite sound right. Need a beat here. I'm not a music minded, but I do kind of sense,
No, I mean,
words.
The lyricism is second to none.
And a lot of labor with the accuracy just out of town, because of course it takes place in the real town of Seward, a fictional version around 2010. And so just getting those details right. If I mention a corner or a business, I want to make sure that I agonied over that. All the stuff I'm writing now takes place, in anywhere USA.
Anywhere
There's no
US,
specific type of place. So
you could have gone back to the last time the Google Street View truck was in town was 2011. So if you wanted a snapshot of where things were in 2011, they haven't been here since.
Right.
And I think it's because they were threatened.
Okay. I do all my own ground truthing, old school, and I got to walk it.
Sure.
So Seward's good for that. But yeah, thank you. I think we're kind of showing the audience like all the rehearsal that we put into this episode.
Yeah. Well, available at your local bookseller, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
No, but it's really good, and to me, I guess. And you won't know it by anything that I've written, but my sort of ethos as far as things like that go is to make every syllable do as much heavy lifting as humanly possible. Like I take it on a syllable by syllable basis.
Yeah. Oh, and
you're about to hear something that completely contradicts what I just said.
Not true. This thing is hitting the mark. I listened to it this morning. It's got the beats. It is everything counts, making every piece count. A lot of that comes down to, I think you'll agree, taking away what doesn't work, what isn't as good as all the rest, what is unneeded. It's just a classic writer's.
Kill your darlings. Every word you take away gives the other one's power,
Yeah. Something, you got 7 words. If you could say it in 5, that's a big help. Always kind of, even when the words.
And aesthetics are important too. As you know, if you read Seward Soundboard by Sean, what do we say with your middle name?
Sean
Sean the Sauce Ullman.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get to. We got the squawk clip. You're gonna perform a poem as a character.
That's 3 characters.
I do want to make sure that we get in, because I missed some of my notes here as we get going.
Nobody wants to hear about my stupid.
No,
we can talk about Seward Soundboard for the rest of the.
So Sam's been doing a show here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward, a classic DJ'd radio show.
I think we have a total of 1.5 listeners.
Late night, deep cuts. This is every Saturday from 9 to 11.
Every Saturday, 9 to 11. Seward Public Radio, KIBH, all the stuff, 91.7.
That's like the primetime spot. I think like radio, that is competitive to get. How did you manage that?
I got it because nobody's listening.
So what's Deep Cuts all about? I know the last show you had a bit of a logistical thing where you didn't have as much time. You were picking all long form.
Yeah, like it's a theme. Every week is a theme. So for the solstice, we did Sunshine Pop. For Independence Day, we did indie artists. And then like we did Across the Pond, we did Wacky Time Signatures. So the last 2 weeks, because I've been in town and I've been busy with other things, the reason that I'm in town, I had to pick lower maintenance topics, lower maintenance.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. Imagine all those cool topics. Yeah.
The first time we did songs over 10 minutes.
Right.
And then I just went nuts with it and did entire first sides of albums.
Nice.
So, I only had to talk like 3 or 4 times that show. And
right. Keeping in that schedule though. Like, I just want to show.
For my 1.5 listener.
Right. Well,
and that half listener knows who they are.
Thank you for listening.
They refuse to listen out of their left ear, so they cover it up in there.
So autumnal equinox was just confirmed.
Yes,
this weekend.
What
do you got
Sunday
planned for Saturday night?
You know what?
You're going to be taking Seward into.
Hey, we should do that. I should do this for the autumnal equinox. What would be a good, maybe songs that land on an exact amount of minutes? I don't know. What would be a good for the autumnal? We could do autumnal songs.
Right.
Hey, listen, if you're watching right now, if you're in the chat, give me a suggestion for the autumnal equinox. I don't know. Are there enough autumnal songs?
I think so. Yeah.
We'll
Between
think about
mentioning
this.
autumn or just that vibe, the change, when the leaves come falling
yeah,
down.
Yeah, I think we could do it.
Day.
We could do it.
Van the Man. I assume this show is already all planned out and done. You're
no
ready to change. Okay.
No, yet again, it's cobbled together at the last second, like everything else. So, I mean, Frank Sinatra, Autumn in New York. I could do that off the "Come Fly with Me" record. There's some stuff we could do. What did you say, Van Morrison? Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, he's got some good ones. Yeah, I'm making notes for you. Don't worry. So cobbled, great verb. And when I listen to this clip, and I think you're kind of putting yourself down with cobbled, I want to say, but I think that's a nice metaphor for writing, putting things together. Certainly, this clip, sound collage, where you have several pieces put together to create the aura of Squawk. And I mean, I think this as an audiobook, listeners are about to hear, would work great. Audiobooks really catching on.
Yeah, I thought, I might use it as a if I ever give up and self-publish, because nobody's
would have happened by now. Yeah.
Well, I haven't. You know what? I haven't been that diligent about putting it out there, as diligent as I should have been. I kind of wavered in that whole thing. And, people are looking for very specific things. And when your specific thing isn't that specific thing that they're looking for, right. You just lose all hope, really.
Yeah. It
hurts. Yeah. But, and I did interest one publisher, but he read the manuscript. He said it was great, but he said, you know what? Nobody reads to laugh. So.
Not true.
And I think they do, but this tends to be a little gag heavy, but that was the whole point of writing it,
right.
to just make it joke heavy.
Oh yeah, it stays. Yeah,
joke heavier than normal. So
right.
Maybe that's hurting it, because I mean, you don't see a lot of that stuff on the shelves right now.
Yeah,
but I'm standing by it. Even if it never gets published, you'll never read it. Nobody will ever read it. It's just going to be buried with me. I'm going to die at a young age, and it's going to be right on my chest. I'll have my hands folded over it.
Like a true writer.
Yes.
And, I hear that, these aren't on the shelves. Like, I hear that. It's like, that's what I want. I want something I've never read before that's original, but press and agents, we gather.
No, it's just they're selling to market, so you got to go small press, which is the route you took, right?
Yeah.
So, and then self-publishing, which it's kind of like vomiting into a sea of mediocrity.
You were walking that road a little bit, though, and it is becoming more, less of that disgusting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean,
way to get it out and get
it definitely. Yeah, it definitely is. But I just want somebody else to say, okay, let's put this out.
It's that feeling that, yes, we believe in this. We won't. Yes,
I already know.
The manuscript won us over. We're going to make this for you.
Right.
We're going to print 50 copies.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, but signed up.
If somebody else is printing the 50
you're going to pay
copies,
for all of them.
I'll pay for them.
Totally.
Just say that it's good enough.
That's kind of what I want too. Yeah, it's to have that rather than I say it's good enough and it's out. You want that. And it could be any press.
Yeah. I don't care.
Right.
Yeah. It's a romance press or cookbooks. It's a bunch of cookbooks and me. That's fine.
And they're taking Squawk.
Yeah.
Do you want to set up the clip a little bit?
Oh, we're doing the clip now. Okay. So the premise of the book is the protagonist, who was a former pickpocket. It's got kind of an anti-fantasy thing about. I wanted to make fun of a lot of fantasy tropes.
Right.
So I made it in this world that would allow me to play. I'm very inspired by Lewis Carroll, and I kind of just wanted to make it a world that I could play in, and whatever I told you, you just bought into it. You didn't question it. So he was a pickpocket. His brother gave him a job with the city guard. He falls asleep on the job, and when he wakes up, he's killed his brother, who was the captain of the guard. So he's murdered his brother after waking up from a terrible nightmare.
Okay.
About a puffin. And there was no, I made the Puffin sort of the looming antagonist without ever having been to Seward or knowing that I would actually meet Puffins in real life.
Right.
But let me tell you something. I went to that Sea Life Center. I met a couple of Puffins, and you know what? They're pretty great guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, has a nightmare, wakes up. He's killed his brother. He sleep killed his brother. And now the other town guards are attempting to raise an angry search mob to hunt him down.
Daylight had given way to dusk in Pigwench Town Square, and on any other day you'd have thought it delightful. Lavender bows and holiday garland adorned the cottages and shops that crowded the square's perimeter. Marble old men glared down from their pillars in silent disapproval at everyone milling about beneath them. A street sweeper swept. A woman sold flowers. Cobbled streets reached through clustered buildings in all directions, like the outspread fingers of a large, flattened hand. At the plaza's centre, a great fountain depicted Porcilla, the pigwench, attended by her piggies-in-waiting, and the flock of pigeons who held sentry over her abandoned their post for the fading pink of the western sky. The encroaching night dragged in a sharp chill, and the tradesmen of Pigwench buttoned up their coats as they slowly began to collect in front of the municipal building at the eastern end of the square. Flanked by two flickery street lamps, a white-columned facade stared at the last remaining traces of sunlight in the west. On a small stage at the base of the building's steps, a ginger-bearded man in a lion tabard addressed the gathering crowd.
"Right,"
said Leggington, now head constable pro tem.
"The reason we've assembled you all is we need help forming an angry mob. Now, I know most of you aren't angry yet, but we hope to remedy that soon. Constable Reggie will be handing out torches and pitchforks, and I want them distributed evenly through the crowd. It needs to be torch, pitchfork, torch, torch, pitchfork. I don't want the torchbearers all huddled together in the middle like last time, got it? The important thing to remember is we must all stay together, and we must all remain angry."
The din of the crowd softened as the torches and pitchforks were dispensed.
"Who are we angry at?"
said one of the villagers.
"We're angry at a murderer. Yes, there's been a murder. And with your help, I'm sure we'll have no trouble apprehending our suspect. He can't have got far, and this being Squidmate, there won't be any ships departing the island." "Who done the murder?"
shouted the cobbler.
"And who done the getting murdered?"
added the miller.
"I'm getting to that,"
said Constable Leggington, forcing a ginger smile.
"It seems one of our own, Constable Finn, has killed our captain, Captain Finn, who happened to be his own brother."
Here the murmuring of the crowd swelled. This was indeed something to be angry about.
"We'll be looking for a man dressed just as I am. Same red officer's tabard, same puffy shirt sleeves, same black boots, and same striped trousers." "Hang on a minute,"
came a voice.
"I think I see him."
Constable Leggington perked up his head and darted his gaze about. The crowd grew restless.
"No, sorry, my mistake,"
said the voice.
"I was looking at you. Carry on." "Right,"
said Leggington, his face reddening to match his beard.
"Apart from the manner of dress, Constable Finn looks nothing like me. He's tall, gaunt, and pale, with sunken eyes and black hair." "What, like a vampire?"
Several people now fearfully clutched their necks as the tide of anxious chatter swept over the crowd.
"Not like a vampire!"
snapped the constable.
"No, he's right,"
came another voice.
"Vampires are gaunt and tall and pale, with sunken eyes and black hair. But maybe he's like a vampire in those respects. But I assure you, he isn't one." "Are you a vampire then?"
said the miller. Leggington squeezed his eyes closed as though he had an unbearable headache, then opened them widely at the miller.
"What?" "Well, you just said that the murderer was like yourself, but not you, and like a vampire, but not a vampire. Ergo, we can safely assume that you, sir, are in fact a vampire. That's the tautology, lads."
A series of cheers erupted from the crowd, while the miller grabbed hold of his lapels and looked about, nodding confidently.
"First of all, that isn't a tautology. It's a syllogism. And furthermore, it isn't even a proper syllogism because I'm not a bloody vampire!"
Constable Leggington's face went several shades darker than his beard, but he let it soften into a benign pink before carrying on.
"I'm not a vampire, and neither is Constable Finn. He is, however, a murderer. He's murdered Captain Finn, and if you lot don't get out there and help us round him up, I'm placing you all under arrest. Do I make myself clear?"
Everyone stood at attention, afraid to make a sound. The cobbler meekly raised his hand and soon found himself the target of the constable's impatient glare.
This had better be good,
said Leggington.
Well, it's just that out with it! You said there were 2 Finns. How do we know we've got the right one? Because he will be the alive one, won't he?
The constable's voice began to crack.
But if we do capture one of them, and he turns out to be the dead one, could we win a prize for second place? Look! There are no prizes! This is a manhunt! Not a bloody bake-off!
Murmurs of no prizes and not a bloody bake-off erupted from the crowd.
But let's say we happen to have already baked something,
Came a voice.
Could you not be bothered to judge?
Leggington shrugged.
Well, I suppose we could arrange some sort of honourable mention. But what am I saying? No prizes! Got it? And that goes for everyone. No first place, no second place, no vampires, and no capturing the deceased, and no baked goods! Is that clear?
A moan of assent drifted up from the mob as the baker put away the 6 profiteroles he'd somehow already managed to bake while standing there.
Now, are there any more questions?
The farmer raised his hand.
No!
Leggington shouted.
There are no more questions. I've changed my mind. Mine's really more of a statement,
said the farmer.
Let's have it then,
said the constable, now tremulous with anger.
It's just that I was given a torch. Yes, a torch, go on.
Leggington displayed an exaggerated mockery of interest and opened his eyes wildly at the farmer.
Well, as a farmer, all my training is in the pitchfork area, and the cooper has 2, but he won't share.
I get to,
said the cooper.
because I'm ambidextrous.
Well, so trade me one of your pitchforks for my torch.
But if the weight is distributed unevenly, I'll tip over to one side and catch everyone on fire.
Right,
said Constable Leggington.
You can all sod off!
And with that he stormed off, tripped over a mislaid pitchfork, and fell off the stage. Suddenly there came a stirring from within the crowd, and soon an unrest spread through them.
There he is!
Came a voice.
The murderer!
Then, after a pause,
No, never mind. Still looking at you.
That was Alan Busby, ladies and gentlemen. Alan Busby, who did that yesterday on so short notice, plopped out of bed, did it in one take, virtually had no direction from me. I said, look, I'm going to be on the radio. I want to show a clip. I don't want to do the what. Can you do this? He just plowed through it and did a bang-up job.
Unbelievable.
So I think if we open the door, we can hear all of Seward applauding the great Alan Busby.
Absolutely. Unbelievable. What a compliment to the show. First time we've ever played a clip. First time we've ever had that, guests do prepare. They work on their set. But to put together a product like that yesterday, I'm touched.
Well, I'm
sincerely.
happy to be part of a precedent set. Hopefully, this is the first of many clip shows to come.
Yeah, well, we'll have you back.
We've established. Well, other people can.
Yeah, no,
surely.
you're opening doors here. Definitely,
Yeah.
for real. I mean, we're joking around a lot, but I'm excited. We got a new opportunity here.
If you need Alan's number, I'm sure he's.
So, Alan, is this a friend? How do you get in touch with? He's done work for you before.
Yeah, we
collaborated.
We did a podcast, pilot for a podcast that I'm actually kind of trying to sell. But the pilot, the podcast was just sort of a narrative audio, like an old radio play, except very silly,
right?
In the same sort of style as this, a little bit more ribald, I would say. But I was initially conceiving it as a vehicle for discovery for the book. So we launched this episodic podcast. You tune in every week, and then at the end, he comes on and says, if you like this silliness, then there's a whole book full of it, and then people can buy the book,
right?
And everybody who's involved, if they have a thing they want to plug, we plug the thing at the end of the thing. But without the book being published, there's no reason to put out a podcast telling you to buy it. So it's just sitting on the shelf as well.
You're prepping.
I got a lot of stuff on the shelf.
Getting ready for the big launch. Yeah.
The shelves are getting stacked.
That's good. So how did you find him? You just
YouTube. He plays the ukulele on YouTube.
Nice.
And sings. And he does very, very wonderful ukulele renditions of classic rock songs.
And you just heard his voice and you knew this guy. I mean, this is incredible voice acting, I want to say.
Yeah, I didn't know at the time that he had he had like a background at the Edinburgh Comedy Festival and all this other stuff.
I mean, this guy's pretty
So-
pro. I mean, the cobbler, the miller, the farmer, the constable, they all sound different. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
it's great.
He's great. And I don't know if you know, but the Cooper at the very end,
Right. With the two pitchforks.
with
He's
the two
ambidextrous.
pitchforks. Yes, I think that was his Michael Caine. That was a very Michael Caine,
Okay,
Michael
yeah, right.
Caine Cooper that he
He
did.
saved
for
it.
us. Yeah.
The pitchfork stuff, because going to the pilot episode, which I did listen to that podcast, which was also fantastic, but I wanted to go with this. But pitchfork is an object you kind of go to. Which I
Well,
like.
it's a thing you
It's an
don't.
old-fashioned.
It's a thing that you don't. Well, torches and pitchforks. I mean, that's
Totally.
a cliche.
We got
That's
an angry mob here. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to play off that, and then I think we had a lot more. Pitchforks were a lot more part of daily life than they are today.
Right.
Post American Gothic. Wasn't there a pitchfork in the American Gothic painting? Wasn't there?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big symbol.
I think post American Gothic, it's like, okay, we're done with pitchforks. We
Right.
got to move on
Right.
to other technologies.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the pitchfork back.
It's in there. Yeah. Great word. So, like, your interest in, I remember back on the Zooms talking about Monty Python. Obviously, you have interest in British literature, voices. You
Yeah.
have the language, like, Alan Busby's saying these words, who done it, and, the lot of you and all this. But I mean, this sounds just like, Shaun of the Dead, I'm thinking of. Tom Stoppard, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Like, it's just hitting. So, like, maybe your study of British comedic literature, how is that playing into your development as a writer?
I mean, all my heroes are Brits, really.
Right.
I've got some American writing heroes. Sure, we all do, right? But comedically, you can't touch the Brits. They're in American comedy, we tend to laugh down, and we're not sort of elevating wit as much. We're not sort of elevating absurdity as much.
Yeah.
And there's such a great tradition in British comedy that we've just completely missed out on from Peter Cook. We don't the Goonies. What's his name? He was part of the Goonies. I mean, with the Goonies, you've got
Chunk? No.
No, he played what? Peter Sellers. Why couldn't I think of Peter Sellers?
Pink Panther.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got people like Bernard Shaw. I mean, he's Irish, but
Right.
his dialogue is genius.
Right.
Noel Coward's dialogue is genius. And who do we have like dialogue wise? Oscar Wilde. My God.
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde. If you haven't read Wilde, just stop what you're doing. And there's so much genius and so few. If you want to talk about like economy of syllables,
Right.
Never has such profundity been uttered in so concise a way as in some of Oscar Wilde's essays, and even in his he always gives you a lovable cad who delivers the difficult truths in every one of his works, but it's also genius. And we've got some of that here and there. I mean, if you read like Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, she's got when the wife comes in, she's kind of comedic relief, and you think it's like an auntie right out of a Wilde play or something. But it's not as appreciated on this side of the pond, I think. Just the playing with words and playing with concepts and twisting things until they're so absurd, and then doubling down on the absurdity.
Yeah.
You make hay with the conceit.
Yeah.
And I think it should be studied by everybody, even if you're not going to pursue that route.
Right. It's going to help you as an artist, as a writer, as a thinker.
Right. Even if you're
going
not
about your daily life and seeing
Right.
things that are going to make you, laugh at yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
It's an important skill. Yeah. Well put. So these are the authors, among others, Brits that you just loved and read a lot. It's like, at some point.
Douglas Adams. I mean, he's another. Douglas Adams was doing it for a long time. I mentioned Lewis Carroll, right?
Yeah.
Just the people that play with words and ideas and concepts in ways that strike you as new,
right?
Yeah,
absurdity almost like guarantees originality, right? When you're really
Right.
messing around and looking for,
and it's not just for its own sake. I don't think. I mean,
Right.
it broadens your perspective. It exercises the muscle of the malleability of the mind.
yeah,
I think, and teaches you to look at things in ways that you wouldn't have considered, and neurons to travel pathways that they might not otherwise travel.
yeah.
I know I'm really elevating a bunch of silliness,
No,
but
I love it. Yeah. Elevate absurdity. There's a lot of room there to really travel and, just experiment and mess around. I mean, Ricky Gervais' Office comes to mind here.
Ricky Gervais.
Right?
Yeah.
I think of, the shows I've more experience there, but yeah, I'm with you. So this,
Ricky Gervais, he's a force. He's a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
But even his cartoon show, his cartoon show is just an animation of their old radio show. But the fact that he discovered Carl Pilkington and brought him to the world, if he did nothing else, we all owe him a debt of gratitude that we can never repay.
Yeah, man, that might be a good comparison. Now we're moving into, TV, but, the original Office first, the Michael Scott Office, the American, and like, is that, trying to do British humor, because that is absurd as well, but they had a good model for it. That's just the American version.
Yeah. I never got into the American version because every time I would watch, it was all this will they, won't they get together,
and push that. Yeah. That's the Americanized. Right.
Pam, they did this in Friends. I just, I don't want to see it.
Gotta Americanize it. Yeah. Another artist that came to mind, just bringing Wes Anderson. As I heard the narrator, he would jump around. Wes Anderson lately been doing those shorts, the Roald Dahl books, the Henry Sugar, which Sugar.
I haven't seen that, but
okay.
I can't wait. And you know what? I was hoping we would talk about Wes Anderson.
Yeah. I mean, the narrator really sounds like it, where you're like, he's said Leggington, said a voice. It's like the narrator looks, and then the scene goes on right there in front of you as well. That really came to mind.
And I don't think that would have stuck out as much if you just read it in the book. It's just regular dialogue tags. I try not to do it too much, but if you have interplay, then you have to, especially if there's more than two people talking.
That's where the audio gives you another,
it gives you another,
that you can do more,
a little bit dynamism and whatnot. But
and we see, I do want to catch this. We'll get to Wes Anderson. Like, we see how well dialogue works to read. And like perform, more and more when I read a piece, at a reading event, it's like, all right, find some dialogue. Like, it's just people enjoy it more. It's, you can do some voices, you can move around. It really just is punchy. It moves along. We saw that really have some nice pace to it. Of course, there is pace to British stuff always, right? It's very like quickly delivered. They're always ready with the next hit, and that's all working too. But I mean, dialogue, and I imagine Squawk is very heavy dialogue. Like, you do that nice writerly setting, right, with the sunset. And the marbled old men in the rafters and whatnot. But,
I wanted to give some aesthetic. I wanted to give a glimpse of the sort of attention to aesthetics, because I think that's another place where the Brits shine.
Sure, yeah.
Creating, just prioritizing aesthetics in the prose, and making all your words somewhat pretty.
Yeah.
And the pictures you paint pretty. I mean, Oscar Wilde said that good writing was painting and music. Nice. I think over here, we're a little bit leaning toward the painting side for the most part. But as we discussed earlier, you are someone who pays attention to the music, and I think you need both. You need both lyricism and whatever the word is I'm trying to think of for painting, and brush strokes. How about?
Beautiful. You're warmed up. So if there was a sentence that I would pick to be in Seward soundboard, which might, I wished it, a street sweeper swept. That's That I want that one. That's all,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
It's
I'm
great.
glad that
That's
I
so
could
good.
give back.
You got one.
You
Yeah, see,
stole
they're
all the good
available.
sentences,
There's too
and
many.
now I've got one that you can't have.
That's yours. I love that. Yeah. Lyricism and brush strokes. Yeah, so Wes Anderson, you want to go into him a little bit? How
Speaking
he's
of
influenced you?
lyricism and brushstrokes,
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I want to say is, you know, if we get to dialogue, this really feels like theater. You know, which another British, I think, you know, heavy.
Yeah,
Like it
well,
seems like this could be a play.
they
Just how that
do.
was performed.
They do a lot more radio serials than we do. In the Mighty Boosh, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mighty Boosh. Americans know it for the old Greg thing that was a meme around 2010 or so, whenever it was a meme.
Yeah.
But you know, so many of these things start as radio only. Hitchhiker's Guide.
Right.
Hitchhiker's Guide wasn't a book at first. It was a radio drama. It was a radio serial.
Yeah.
That demand was so high for that they made it into a book. So that's just part of their day to day. Like they still actively pursue radio drama.
That's a popular
And
genre that's consumed.
yeah, and it's great if you are writing dialogue heavy stuff,
Right.
because you don't have all the distractions and the extra overhead of production overhead of trying to light something and cast all the. But you gotta have one guy play 5 parts.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll get Alan.
Alan. Yeah.
I mean, dialogue best. I try to go more and more. Like people love to read it. You turn pages fast. Like you turn a page in a book and you see just lined up stacks of dialogue, constable talking. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna eat this up.
Yeah.
The next one, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to go more and more to that because I like reading it, and I tell new writers, you know, working in the schools, because like you got to come like write some dialogue. You know, write what are they saying? You know, you don't even notice you're writing sometimes. It can get going fast when you're you're hearing these guys, like you're hearing the farmer, the miller, the cobbler, and you know how they can. I mean, the constable's great. He's really using all the material to.
That's basically John Cleese. I mean, I just told him to do John Cleese for that. But yeah, I mean, in 2, I guess you should realize that, or when you're writing dialogue, a lot of people will make it weighty, and I think dialogue, like any other part of writing, still needs to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You know?
Keep it tight.
People need to come with something that does something.
Right.
Whether it's reinforce their character or whatever.
Yeah.
But don't just languish in these
Right.
self-indulgent.
Best to keep it shorter. And how is this? You know, is it important to know that the who was it? The Cooper is ambidextrous.
Right.
Not as
right.
but that's funny. You know, you're really making these
Well, I'm
slots
just
count with jokes.
Yeah, with jokes, it's just setting up pins and knocking them down, setting up bowling pins and knocking them down. But and I don't think I could write, like I've been working on like a stand-up routine over the years, but I don't like having to be the straight man and the joke deliverer.
Yeah.
You know, I want there to be a straight man that the jokes can bounce off of.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's so much more difficult to be everything in your delivery than rely on having that extra person, having that extra someone who is almost like an audience surrogate, who can then when the absurdity comes, they react in the way that the audience would react.
You'd rather have another person up there on stage doing that rather than you moving from side to side doing both characters. I mean, you're all of them as a writer.
Ideally, you could pull that off. Some people pull that off.
Yeah.
But it on stage as a lone person, it would feel gimmicky.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
Maybe I'll do it. Stand-up comedy is all about being on the island. You know, you just don't see that many, two men.
Do people come do people do stand-up in Seward? Is there any stand-up? Has there ever been a stand-up guy? And
it can happen. I mean, I've entertained the idea myself. You know, it's an ultimate art.
Yeah.
Right? Totally. So as writers, how can we not, as a comedy writer, certainly, how can you not, delve in?
Well, instantly whether, people say that writing a book is like telling a joke and then waiting 2 years to find out if anybody laughed.
And that's such a pull of stand-up as well, to actually do
this
something
is instant. You will know
Right.
if it's working or if it's not.
Even just to bomb sounds like fun. You
I know.
just
I
did it,
know.
you know?
I absolutely
Right.
want to go up there and
It
bomb.
really is a great opportunity. I've been hesitant and remain, but you could always keep writing. And
the other thing is performing as yourself.
right.
You know, like I don't want to be myself
No.
up there. I
Yeah.
want to be these other crazy, wacky,
Right.
fun characters.
And that's the direction I've gone as well.
Yeah.
With Sauce or
Right.
Ronnie
Yeah.
Mickey. Two names, one man. We're
Sean
gonna
Sauce Ullman, ladies and gentlemen.
91.7 KIBH FM Seward. Sam McDavid.
We're
Sam
gonna drink.
McDavid
Sam McDavid is
in the booth. We're
Discuss
talking
amongst
fast.
yourselves.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We're on YouTube on our @Sacktown channel. Where do you want to go? We got Wes Anderson.
We got Wes Anderson. We didn't talk about Wes Anderson. Now, if I were to ask you, what is your favorite Wes Anderson piece of work?
Right. I go Rushmore, just the original.
See,
Which,
that's not the original.
Bottle Rocket is
Bottle
up
Rocket.
there as well. Rushmore.
That's the only wrong answer.
yeah.
That's the only wrong answer. It's the least Wes Anderson-y Wes Anderson.
Well, maybe
movie.
that's why.
Maybe
I
you're
mean,
not
Max,
as much of
you
a.
know, that was the first.
He was
with him.
I mean, it was
too.
kind of based on Wes, actually.
Okay.
Wes was staging plays and putting
Right.
up his own stuff in high school and stuff.
Right.
So in that sense, maybe so, but the artifice wasn't there. There was very little artifice in Rushmore,
yeah.
and
I hear
and the later stuff you kind of miss it. You know, when Jack Nicholson was on The Shining, okay, he had given 11 performances prior to that. He said he had been in 11 movies, but he goes almost back to the 50s. Actually, he was doing all those B movies with what's his face. Anyway, he was doing a lot of B movies.
Gotcha.
Early on, and so he said, I made 11 movies before this, and in every one I've tried to come up with 11 different kinds of real. I wanted to give the most authentic performance that I could.
Cool.
And then Stanley Kubrick comes along,
Right.
and says, of course it's real, but is it interesting? And it's far more important to be interesting than to be real. And you can be believable without being real. People were doing it for years before. I mean, I don't want to get into a bunch of acting
This is good.
theory.
I'm with you.
Stanislavski came along, right?
I'm not with you.
And and said you have to you have to pull from real life. So if your character's been up for 3 days, stay up for 3 days.
Yeah, I see.
And be as miserable as you can, and then just channel that misery into your performance.
Yeah.
And there's a famous story where I think it was Dustin Hoffman had done that, and he was in a movie with John Gielgud, and John Gielgud said, "Oh my boy, you look like hell," and Hoffman was like, "Well, you know, my character's been up for 3 days. I got to be up for 3." And he says, "Oh, that sounds dreadful. You should try acting."
Yeah.
Like, so in other words, the whole point is to pretend, you know.
Yeah. I think Jim Carrey doing Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon, he made some appearances
Oh,
in character. I mean, I think he
he stayed in character
for the
for
whole
the
shoot.
entire
Yeah.
duration of that movie,
and I like how that turned out.
to the point that he was pissing off, that he was upsetting Jerry the King Lawler.
Right.
Where when Andy Kaufman was alive, he and Jerry were secretly on the same team. You know,
Okay.
they were planning this stuff out. He may have taken it a little bit further than Jerry wanted to, but I think Jerry was in on the gag.
Gotcha.
And with Jim, when Jim played Jerry, he was just making him angry.
Right.
You know,
They did not get together ahead of time. Be like, here's how it's
Yeah.
gonna go.
and I actually have friends who were at Andy Kaufman's funeral, believe it or not, and they thought that he was going to get up out of the
Right.
casket. Like they were sure it was all a put on. They
Yeah.
went because they thought, well, he's going to let everybody in on this at this
Yeah.
point.
Talk about an original, stand-up. act.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good stuff. Oh man, mine's jumping. Your work. So Squawk,
Will never see the light of day. It'll be buried with me.
though there have been some books produced, dummies to get to agents and get out.
Yeah,
You have bound this thing between two covers. It's been done.
Absolutely, yeah. I have, and but that's just for people who are interested. There was a cabbie here in town who ended up with a copy, and he's no longer a cabbie. He works somewhere. I have no idea where he works now, but I'd like to track him down and find out if he finished it, and then if not, where he ran aground, like where he was just like, this isn't for me.
Well,
I'm throwing this.
He let
thing
you know
away.
he really liked it.
No.
Oh, I thought you.
I haven't talked to him since
I see.
since he read it. The phone number that he had for his cab company is no longer in existence.
Did you hear that there was instructions to where did he find this is a good story.
Okay.
Now,
so here's the thing. So I took it to last time I was in town, I had brought a copy to give to you, and you were out of town. You left town or something. You were probably trying to,
yeah,
Sam's here. Let me get out of town.
No, yeah, we just happened to miss. Yeah.
And so I just left it at the free book thing at the cruise ship terminal. But the more I started thinking about it, I was like, these people aren't going to want to read this. This is not their cup of tea. These, there's a lot of elderly folks and stuff like that. So I was like, I just need to have this thing thrown away. So I called the cab company and I said, look, I'll pay you $20 to go get this thing and just throw it in the garbage. So he waited till the next cruise ship day. He went to the thing. He said, is this the book? And I said, yes, that's it. Just throw it away. And he said, well, can I read it first?
Right.
I said, yeah, if you can give me some feedback, I'd love it. He said, this is it sounds like it's right up my alley.
Oh, okay. We're just reading about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just reading the back cover. Right.
Gotcha.
So, so I said, sure, go ahead. And then time passes. I give him a call and the number's no longer in existence. So Mike, if you're out there, I don't know where people say you're still in town. I don't even know your last name.
Let Sam know how you feel about
let
the
me know.
book.
And I'm not precious about it. If you hate it, that's fine. You're in great company. Just let me know, and let me know where you were just like, okay, this is not.
It is a fairly large book. How many pages we got here?
It's the same length as Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is 107,000 words. I could probably cut out
100,000. Well, that's like
fourth of
that's
those.
kind of the mark for a novel. I kind of remember trying to be like, all right, I'm there. That's enough.
Yeah,
I made it. But that is pretty chunky. 300.
Yeah, and it all
Harry
plays
Potter.
out in comedy. Like you heard that was what you heard was basically a sketch with a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And it all plays out in these little comedy sketches as you go.
Yeah,
that are all sort of encapsulated within themselves, but there's still an overarching narrative, and it still follows there's maybe the first act is a little stretched, but the classic 3-act structure is there. The point that all is lost and the Dark Knight and all the stuff from the Save the Cat. If you're familiar, people have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
These references are great. I need some winter's worth of work to do here.
No. I mean, you know about the 3-act structure and how important everything has to fall into this paradigm and whatnot.
And we heard from Act 1 there.
That was definitely Act 1. Yeah. That was we were still world building there in the beginning, but
gotcha.
Yeah. And if we want to dovetail, I got to keep drinking water for this.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're saving this because it ruins my throat every time.
Yeah.
But, okay. So this is a.
So we're winding down. Maybe I feel like we've covered a lot at a fast.
No.
I'll
just
do the talking after this one.
I'll talk with the bad throat.
A little different.
I
want to hit on the cartoon work a bit too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So okay. So this is a bit of narrative verse, and it is taken from the classic story of Faust. As you know, Faust sold his soul to the devil for earthly pleasures and riches, whatever he sold his soul to, but he sold it to a prince of hell, Mephistopheles. Okay, and which is in the context of this poem is shortened to Mephisto for the sake of the meter. Right. And
the music. Yeah, the meter, the music.
Sorry. The music. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but in our version, Mephisto has to go back and deliver some bad news. Faust has altered the deal, taking inspiration from a fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk, and he went back empty-handed. Mephisto went back empty-handed. I really would like headphones for this, but we're just going to wing it and hope for the best, okay? Hopefully the mic won't peak when I do this.
Hang on to your hats, folks.
No. Believe me, just change the channel. Go watch something else.
Don't touch that dial. Sam McDavid doing an original poem as Mephisto.
Unholy shriek in Trapdoor's Creek flung wide the gates of hell. The damned were awed and gnashed and gnawed till in Mephisto fell. The succubi they hushed their cries and perched upon red coals, all gathered round with scowl and frown. Now hark, poor wretched souls. Mephisto rose on caprine toes. His eyes went black with fear. For far away through smoke of grey, a chariot drew near. 6 hounds of death through sulphurous breaths pulled coach of melting steel. This rider known on mobile throne personified evil. Great demons knelt and lesser felt it best to run and hide. Now moving fast through them he passed, their lord his flaming ride. The coach did halt in Satan vault to where Mephisto stood. The latter bowed and Satan proud flashed teeth like rotting wood.
My prince, said he, but why, prithee, dost thou so soon return? Was it not said when Faust were dead you'd bring his soul to burn?
Alas, my liege, his heart then seized, his knees grew weak and shook. I must be blind, contract he signed, but one which I mistook. He switched the writs, the clever git, his lips a quake with dread. His soul goes free, and I bought thee, gulp, some magic beans instead.
Why, magic beans, what do you mean?
The minion showed his hand, and 2 were there, a beansome pair, not magic though, quite bland.
And what, dear sir,
said Lucifer,
am I to do with these?
He answered large, hell, you're in charge, do with them as you please.
Be thine own garden, gardener,
cried Satan. Then the seeds in Mephisto did both he sow to sprout eternal weeds. That's the end. Thank you.
You can hear all of Seward booing right now.
Not me.
All of Seward.
Bravo. Incredible.
All of Seward is booing.
Kept it straight. Several characters. I mean, the voice acting. That's fun.
Yeah, well, I do the cartoons,
Right.
and it's fun to do. It's a fun little parlor trick, I guess.
I
But
mean, it's like icing on the cake. You work hard to write this to make it all fit. I mean, he switched the writs, the clever git. I mean, you get that. It's like, yep, that's right.
It's a fun little.
That fits. That puzzle, I just did that one. Next one. So this is all built up, and now you get to enjoy the reward of like now, that's got to be the kind of ultimate bring together a lot of skills.
Ideally,
Yeah.
it's one day I'd like to animate this.
Yeah.
And I always wanted somebody else to read it, but then I just did the voices myself, and now I just do it in my sleep. It's just
Right.
something that
You performed that on a Zoom. I remember just like that.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And then
Yeah, it was a little bit. The voices were a little bit different at the time, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was the writers group is probably sick to death of me doing that, even though it's been years. Please, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the.
That's awesome. And the do it yourself, that's a way to get it done. I'd circle back to the self-publishing and, maybe doing some, well, I think Squawk could get picked up too.
I could. Yeah, we could look at that. I mean, I'm just sick of sitting on it,
Right.
I'd like to do another pass and cut more syllables out.
Yeah.
And really get it. And hearing it read by somebody else, some of those sentences are a little on the long side.
Yeah.
But what are you
That's
going
the
to do?
point. Like, I feel like we have enough of that. You did that. We could cut some
Yeah.
fingers here. We're still getting across that message of what you're trying to. The point of these is to make the reader feel like this or laugh at this.
Yeah.
Some good jokes go, but that's the luxury of having worked so hard on a book. You have
It's-
enough book.
That's the hardest thing for me to kill is a gag that I know
Of
works.
course, yeah.
That's the hardest thing to kill.
Right.
And do you save it? Can it only be used right here?
Podcast where the podcast comes in. Because on the podcast, which is called
It's the yet to be named Eaten by a Dragon podcast.
right, it features actual excerpts from Squawk as well
No.
as no.
No,
It's
it's
just
its
like
own
Squawk
story. It's just
themed.
stylistically
Yeah,
it's
matches.
similar.
So that could work for the gags you take out.
Yeah, I could repurpose and throw them in there, because 107,000 words is a lot for it's a lot of people. I'm sure people are just sick of the gags. In fact, I had one reader who was like, man, in the beginning there was just so many jokes, and I was like, that's the one thing I didn't want you to say.
Right.
I didn't. If the jokes are landing,
right,
that should be the reason that you read.
Yeah.
Right.
There's so many jokes and they're great, and right. Yeah.
If
Tough.
they're not landing, fine, I'll take them out.
Right.
But if they work,
yeah,
that's why I wrote the damn thing. You know.
And they weren't easy to write.
No, sometimes they just write themselves.
You get on a roll. Yeah, you got a world here where I can, as listening to that clip, I don't know. I could kind of sense what it's like to be you a little bit as far as like getting the next idea. I'm not saying I could, but I could just see you, like how they play off each other and lead to the next. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain, but it was kind of fun as a reader to be like, I could. I'm not saying I could do it, but I could see like where you kind of traveled and how you get a rhythm with. Yeah, you create these people, and there's just stuff to play with. Like you put the stuff on the shelf, you got all that to work with. You got the cobbler, you got the this guy's like this, and I don't know. It was fun.
Yeah, hopefully
very eloquent.
It stays fun and people stick with the funness of it. But
I want to read it. Let's follow through on that.
Oh, sure. I'll send you a copy.
The copy, yeah.
You'll probably get sick of the. Maybe you can tell me what to cut.
Yeah.
Cut this. Get rid of this.
I like the jokes. They're landing. Keep them coming.
And that's the problem. I'm not precious about rewording things or anything like that. But if I know a joke works, it's just that's the hardest thing to kill.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, joke works. Make it work. Yeah.
Because there's nothing like, the only other way that you can cause somebody to have an involuntary emotional response is to make them cry. And that's usually out of sadness.
Right.
Like what other phenomenon in the universe is there where you create a thing that makes somebody do something completely involuntary
right.
out of joy, out of delight and surprise, Yeah. And that's why people do things to make other people laugh, So.
Yeah. There's no better pursuit in writing or life. I would say, going back to being a kid, like it was all about like, let's be funny, learn to be funnier, like this makes everyone happier. And and so I would argue, I would have, like we talk about, everything's got to count. This word, it's got to add up to the character. It's got to have a point. I would have leniency with jokes. I'm fine if a joke does not fit into this. It's like, how this doesn't help the story. If it makes me laugh, I want it in there. You keep those. You could just make some slight connection, like it's there because of this.
And then there's a House of Cards element too, because I don't know if you're familiar with Chekhov's guns. Do you know about Chekhov's guns?
No. Read some Chekhov stories long time ago.
He says if you introduce a gun in the first act, that gun has to go off in the second.
I know that, yeah.
Okay. And in Squawk, I'm piling on all these Chekhov's guns in the first act.
Yeah.
That you think are just absurdity for absurdity's sake. But in the third act, they reveal themselves to actually be profound story points.
Nicely
done. You never would have guessed that from just reading the first act. Well, he's just throwing a bunch of wacky stuff at me, but it all comes back. Everything's called back to
fun,
little minute stuff.
That's cool,
and it's playful in that way. But if you don't get to that point, then the problem is if I have to cut one of those, it has implications way down the line.
Cut that. That's all part of the design. That sounds like, this is going to be fun to read again. You get to the end and you see, like a movie where it's like, that's how that connects. I remember that bit of nonsense. Like that is actually a big part of things.
Yeah, it just makes it fun. It just makes
totally.
it a fun, interwoven plot line.
This guy actually had a plan here.
Well, he didn't, but
he made a plan by the end, and it's pretty cool. Now, I just having some sneaks peeks at Squawk. I think there's levels to it. I'm excited to get into it. So please.
I'll just have one printed and sent to you.
Yeah. Done.
While
you're here,
then you can throw it away Put it in the cruise ship terminal. Throw it away.
There's a copy of Squawk floating around Seward. If you come across that,
In some
It
dustbin, hopefully.
it is worth a lot of money. There aren't many copies. Limited edition.
25 cents.
Squawk. I noticed in the screen you held up, there's like a 1 in the queue. Is this several books, or maybe that's just part of?
That's a sword. It's a little
like
sword.
the tail to the queue is like a 1. That's just the old.
Oh, that's the font. That's just the wacky.
We're not
medieval.
going like trilogy or anything. Squawk.
I'd
is
love
Squawk.
to. I have I've already got this title for the second book, which is Requiem for a Gelatinomancer.
Nice.
So
Using a few more words.
a few more
You
words.
got
Yeah.
pages written on that? Is that underway?
I'm not gonna. This was such a
Right.
laborious process that
Totally.
I'm not gonna start that unless somebody reads this. I mean, people have read it. There are
Yeah.
people who actually were very complimentary of it, and
The Requiem one's going to take a publisher like, yeah, we're doing Squawk, and we want the
And we
next
want
one.
the
Pay you
next
for the
one.
next one too.
yeah,
That's the dream, to be like, yeah,
Right.
the thing you're writing, we are definitely going to
yeah.
publish.
The thing that you want to write.
right.
You're not being paid for something that
Right.
somebody else wants you to write.
Right.
But the thing that you want to make is actually being funded at the time that you're creating.
Yeah. And the fun doesn't have to be much. Just to like going back to the beginning of like they're just on board. They're gonna
Exactly.
support it.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
Yeah. And I mean, when Bukowski was, writing, some guy came to him. He was in his 50s at this point, and working at the post office.
Yeah. I
And
remember that novel.
some publisher came to him and said, "Listen, you need to quit the post office. How little can I pay you, and you survive every month?" And he said, like, $100. And so that guy just gave him $100 a month to write.
To not work at
Yeah.
the PO.
And I guess he made it. He played the horses and drank his liquor, and
Turned into more money after some books. but-
yeah, movies and
Right. All right, man. Well, I think we're at about an hour. How you feeling?
yeah, man. I mean,
Cartoons. I think we got to do a
oh.
part 2. Like we got the show back on. Got to have some new guests coming up. Thank you all for listening. But cartoon, we're gonna figure out a way to actually show a cartoon next time. We're gonna have Sam. back on, check in on Squawk.
And you know what? If I come back in the next, like after a couple of months, I'll have a new cartoon that will have premiered. Let's keep our fingers crossed in November.
There we
So it'll
go.
be fresh. I'll have it on the film festival circuit, and we're finally closing in. I got invited to screen at a film festival in this little coastal town that I had screened at before. The lady's leaving, and she said, "Hey, do you have anything?" And I was like, "I've got this thing in the works. Let me see," because I'm working with this animator,
Yeah.
who's been doing all the heavy lifting, and hopefully it'll be done.
She remembered you and was like, "This guy's good. We're bringing him back." Cool. I just booked you for late November. You're
Late November.
penciled in. Or-
Okay. Well,
yeah.
it might have to be postponed depending on
Schedule's
if
filling
this
up.
thing actually finishes. But
No, we're gonna have you back. Anything else, man? It's been great. Just cutting it up with you, catching up.
it's been fun.
It's like a nice part of the show is like I allocate time to just sit down with friends and get into some
Yeah.
good conversations. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to read Squawk. I'm excited for you. Your stuff's fun, and it's great writing. Is so that's on the sentence level.
Well, I mean, listen, it's no
It is
Seward soundboard available at your local bookseller.
Squawk floating around town somewhere, and I'm gonna have a copy, and I'm gonna add to its
Pistol Sean Maravich,
sauce.
ladies and gentlemen. Sean Sauce.
This has been a Sam McDavid production. 91.7 KIBH FM Seward, and on YouTube at Sacktown. Sam, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.